fascinating and really personalized shortcut through our usual stack of sources.
A very specific shortcut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have this dramatic narrative. It's a poetic reflection, really, from a YouTube video transcript by an individual named Jess Eckerin.
That's right. And what you're really looking at here is a kind of highly stylized personal victory memoir.
Right.
This speaker, he identifies himself as a trained transactional analyst, and he's reflecting on what he calls past impediments during his formative years.
And the core claim here, the whole point of this reflection, is that he systematically applied this specialized knowledge transactional analysis, or TA, to overcome what he saw as sabotage.
And to emerge, in his own words, as the winner in life.
So the mission for this deep dive is really to unpack this specific customized drama for you. We're looking at a story where pretty intense personal relationship problem
And professional competition.
Right. All of that gets immediately elevated and framed as, well, an international conspiracy and a huge test of character.
And the key to winning, he claims. Pure self-control and analytical skill, all coming directly from his psychological training.
Okay, so before we really dig into the specifics of the conflict, we should probably provide the intellectual scaffolding here.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We keep mentioning transactional analysis, or TA. If you're not familiar with it, it's a theory from Eric Berne.
And it's all about analyzing social interactions, right?
Exactly. By breaking down our communication into these distinct psychological states, which are known as ego states, he's got the parent, the adult, and the child.
Essentially, we're all cycling through these. The parent state holds all behaviors and judgments we've learned.
Your shoulds and oughts.
Exactly. Then the child state is all about spontaneous emotion, impulse.
And the adult state is the objective, rational, just the facts part of us.
And that framework is so key to understanding this source. A major goal in TA is to move conversations out of these destructive patterns or games and maintain communication from that rationale.
From the adult ego state. The entire narrative we're about to unpack rests on the idea that his TA training let him keep his adult firmly in charge, while everyone else was stuck in, an impulsive child or critical parent state.
Okay, with that framework in mind, let's jump in. Let's start with the biggest, most personal challenge he faced. This moral test, presented by a woman named Vali.
So Vali is introduced into his life because his father sent her to stay with the family. She's a paying guest.
And he says right away that he had to force himself to be the guardian for her. So it establishes this relationship that's rooted in duty, not affection.
And his initial assessment of her is, well, it's quite cold. He describes her as dark, unattractive, and easygoing to any male.
But that perception changes almost immediately.
It changes dramatically the second she becomes a direct threat to his self-determination. The whole conflict just explodes when Vali tells him she wants to marry him.
And he was only 21 at the time.
Right. And that's the moment a paying guest turns into a big threat and moral challenge.
And this is where the narrative just takes a hard turn from, personal anecdote into high-stakes espionage. It's an incredible leap.
It really is. He elevates the conflict immediately. So Vali's attempts to weaken him.
Which we can guess means her romantic or emotional advances.
Right. He doesn't see those as just relationship dynamics. He sees them as part of some grander strategy. He says she attempted Humpty a number of times to weaken him.
And this is the part that is so unique to this source. He frames Vali as an explicit operative.
An operative. He views her as a spy on me from Malaysia and an ardent member behind Malaysian conspiracy.
Just think about that for a second. An unwanted romantic advance gets categorized as foreign espionage.
Espionage specifically intended to sabotage his future.
It's such a monumental framing device, and the motive he gives for this international operation is intensely personal.
The whole purpose of the conspiracy, he says, was to distract my youthfulness away from development.
And for Vali to spoil my character. It's like a retroactive reorganization of a personal challenge. It suggests that any failure, any distraction wouldn't have been his fault, but because of this external evil plotting.
And this is where we come right back to the TA framework. The victory, according to him, was achieved entirely through meticulous self-management.
Which is a perfect application of that adult ego state we were talking about.
Exactly.
So tell us how he claims he neutralized this threat, because the language he uses, it's maybe the most bizarre and memorable part of this whole thing.
It really is. He claims he used Vali only as her educational peppermint.
Educational peppermint.
Yes, and he couples that with this critical detail. His self-controlled behavior with Vali added to them only angry temperament.
So he maintained such a rigid analytical distance that her every move, her every advance was just interpreted by him as ill will meant.
Educational peppermint. It's like he's saying he was extracting a lesson, this tiny, useful, refreshing little benefit from a situation that he saw as designed to derail him emotionally.
In those TA terms you laid out, it sounds like he just refused to play the game she was trying to start.
That's a perfect way to put it. If Volley was operating from a child state, maybe playing a game of Poor Me or Come and Rescue Me, Jacek Karan, by reducing her to educational peppermint, kept himself in that disciplined adult state, completely walled off from any emotional manipulation.
It sounds like the ultimate defense mechanism, really, to turn emotional rejection into a kind of intellectual validation. But let me push back on that a little.
Please.
Isn't framing a personal relationship or even a romantic rejection as an international conspiracy? Isn't that just a way to protect your ego? To avoid taking any emotional responsibility rather than some objective application of TA?
That is absolutely the critical interpretive lens we have to use here. You have to remember the purpose of this reflection. It's being delivered after he's already succeeded.
Right, he's looking back.
He's looking back to prove that he was always right, always in control, and always facing these external forces of sabotage. Defining the conflict as a high-stakes conspiracy validates the extreme self-control he maintained. It turns his suffering into a kind of heroic resistance.
That makes perfect sense. So Volley represented the personal, the moral threat, the emotional distraction, but the source introduces a second impediment, arumagum.
Yes.
And with arumagum, the conflict shifts into the professional and ambitious realm. Let's dig into that rivalry.
Right, so Arumagum's strategy, as the speaker remembers it, was purely manipulative. He says Arumagum thought he could darken my future by his skillful interaction.
So Arumagum was banking on his own interactive skill to get ahead.
Exactly, by exploiting people he saw as naive. So you have this battle between two guys who both think they have superior interaction skills.
But the speaker delivers this just devastating, very specific critique of Arumagum's whole worldview. He says that Arumagum's objective perception was not realistic enough to earn him merit.
He's not just saying he's wrong. He's saying his competitor's entire view of reality is fundamentally deficient. And the language he uses to describe these shortcomings it's astonishing.
It really is. He criticizes him for being not strong enough to perceive the social truth sufficiently.
Which, of course, confirms that the speaker sees himself as the one who perceives the true, objective reality of the world.
And then we get the line that we just have to linger on. His views on social wealth seem to be blurred by his traditional cholesterol.
Traditional cholesterol? I mean, What an incredible piece of blending. It ties traditional, maybe culturally inherited flaws, baggage, history, flawed social norms.
And it connects them to a literal physical health condition, cholesterol.
Used here as a metaphor for something that clogs his perception. The speaker's basically saying Arumagum's entire way of seeing the world is blocked up by both outdated thinking and a lack of mental hygiene.
It's not just an insult, it's a total analytical dismissal. He's positioning his rival as scientifically and intellectually deficient, not just incorrect. It's almost like he's medicalizing his competitor's flawed perception.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating is how he frames victory in both cases. Volley was chaos, emotion, and external conspiracy.
And Arumagum was calculated but ultimately flawed professional manipulation.
And in both scenarios, the speaker relies on this internal analytical strength from his TA training to just resist the threat or dismantle it or simply see past it because he has a superior perception of the social truth.
Which brings us right back around, full circle, to the core tool he used to win. J.S. Akerin makes a point of identifying himself as a trained transactional analyst from Corrimer District.
This wasn't luck. His success wasn't random. He's arguing it was achieved through the direct application of learned psychological principles.
So that TA framework, it's what allowed him to categorize the world around him.
Right. To label Volley's advances as a game he had to avoid, and to label Arumagum's strategies as the product of traditional cholesterol.
And that created the boundary he needed to maintain that self-controlled behavior he keeps mentioning.
Which is what defeated both the moral and the professional challenges.
So TA becomes the key differentiator. It let him treat a personal threat as just educational peppermint, and a professional threat as an objectively flawed interaction. He could stay in that adult state and never get dragged into the chaos.
And the narrative synthesizes this perfectly in the conclusion. J.S. Akerin claims he became the winner in life using transactional analysis as his social ladder.
Social ladder.
That specific framing suggests his psychological training wasn't just a therapeutic tool for self-improvement. It was an aggressive mechanism, a ladder that he used for personal defense and professional advancement against all these perceived enemies and conspirators.
That completely reframes the practical application of TA, doesn't it? It moves it way beyond just understanding parent-adult-child dynamics. It turns it into a framework for, aggressive personal defense.
TA is a form of intellectual martial arts against conspiracy, and the power of that framing is just immense. By defining himself as the analyst, he can dismiss or neutralize any threat just by labeling it. If you categorize your opposition as being impaired by traditional cholesterol or motivated by a Malaysian conspiracy, you don't even have to engage with them on an equal emotional or professional footing.
So to summarize this incredibly unique deep dive for you, we've explored a dramatic personal reflection where the speaker overcame two major impediments. First, the perceived spy, Vali.
The one who presented a Malaysian conspiracy and a moral challenge.
Right, neutralized by using her as educational peppermint. And second, the ambitious rival, Arumugam, whose perception was blurred by his traditional cholesterol.
And the victory in both cases was secured entirely through superior self-controlled behavior, all fueled by his expertise in transactional analysis.
And as we've talked about, this entire reflection is delivered after the fact. It's structured as a testament to his victory.
It successfully reframes these really challenging personal interactions, rejection, ambition, conflict, as these high-stakes, almost epic battles. And ultimately, the narrative just serves to validate his central skill set.
The application of the TA framework as the ultimate social ladder.
Exactly.
So that raises a really important question for you to mull over, based purely on this source material. If long-term success is claimed to be achieved by using a specialized skill, like transactional analysis, as a social ladder to manage rivals, does the specific act of defining past, potentially painful personal conflict as this overwhelming external Malaysian conspiracy and moral challenge, does that fundamentally serve the function of cementing the victory and elevating the perceived power of the framework he used?
It certainly makes the final outcome feel less like simple good fortune, and more like strategic earned triumph.
Indeed. Go forth, stay curious, and continue analyzing the ego states of those around you. We'll see you on the next deep dive.